afternoon, everybody, and welcome in to a special Maize and Blue Reviews Good Afternoon Michigan Football here on Rivals.com. It's special because we have Jerry Diorio, who is on the screen, and look at him. He's got a pretty cool hat as well. I don't know, Indiana Jones? What do you call that hat when you put that one on?
This is Charleston hat special. Charleston, South Carolina. They make them down there, and my wife and I were headed to Florida, and we always stop in either Nashville or Savannah or Charleston, break up the ride a little bit, and went on a walk, and my hair just isn't what it used to be. And so I've gravitated to the idea of it's hat time.
Is that a leather hat?
It's I get, it's kind of a suede type.
Suede.
Yeah, suede type, leathery, hard type, leathery type hat. So
I'm going to go with my first, the Indiana Jones. That's what it looks like to me. I would wear it.
It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine, Denny. It is great to be a Michigan Wolverine.
Well, let me give a shout out to a bunch of Michigan Wolverines that were in Ann Arbor on Main Street last night. Great job at the event on Main. That's Charles Woodson's a charity to fund Mott Children's Hospital. He's been doing it 10 years, I think. It's and a lot of the names and the guys that you see out there. Brian Greasy seems like he's there every year. Jared Irons, I've recognized him. I was just looking at a photo a little bit earlier. Those guys. I saw Jaden Davis Warren from this year's Michigan football team. Not a surprise, Davis Warren, who had to go through a lot of treatments over at Mott, and he gives back. I would imagine those kids, when he walks in and he can say, hey, look, I was here. I'm over at the football. I mean, what an incredible story he is. And to see Davis Warren there was not a surprise. Jaden Davis, I don't know. Sometimes, Jerry, you just say, it's a great kid. I don't know if Jaden Davis is a great kid, but seeing him at an event for a charity event on a Wednesday or a Thursday night that benefits Mott, to me, that seems like he's a great kid. So maybe he is. I mean, I'll give him thumbs up for going there. And all of those guys, great event. And it wasn't as hot. Usually each year when they have that, it's humid, it's a scorcher, there's thunderstorms. They had a little bit of rain, but it stayed away from Ann Arbor. But this weekend, we're going to get that heat. But a lot of Michigan men down there all wearing those blue blazers, and they should be commended for
Jenny, I want to give a little dovetail and shout out to Mott in a personal experience. My son, and this was all, this is the great thing about being a part of the Michigan football family, and being part of the Michigan family. I made a phone call to Mike Gittleson, and I made a phone call to Lloyd Carr. And this is 35 years after the fact that I played there. And I was calling them because my son was diagnosed with what is called Chiari malformation when he was in 7th or 8th grade. And so what was, this was something that, could paralyze you, could ruin, could paralyze you for life. And there are so many other side effects, because of the great Michigan family, because, those connections with Gittleson and Coach Carr got me in touch with the Mott people. And I can't remember Morosco, I believe is her name, Dr. Morosco, who had Chiari malformation. She was on one. She would have to get on one of those. What do you call those little? Not those scooters. Those old time scooters. That's how she would work and operate. Make a long story short, they cured my son, and so Mott Children's is a very near and dear special place for me. And God bless those people. They do a phenomenal job. My son is in great shape today. No more issues with it, and just thank God for Mott's Children's Hospital.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's close to my heart too, and I'd like to give a shout out to the athletes, that go there, and almost every one of them, when you talk with them, they come away with a different perspective, and they say that they get out of it more than the kids do. They almost all say that, and it changes their lives, and so they all give them a big thumbs up for taking their time.
And Denny, what you're talking about is something that happened with me. I mean, there were the football players. There were not just football players. There were all athletes. There were women basketball player, softball players, and they really take a pride in connecting with those kids and helping lives and stuff like that. And it's just it really is a great place. And God bless Mott's children.
Yep. And, with that, I don't know if it takes front page or center page or whatever else, but those guys all, and Woodson, man, he's a Hall of Famer in college, one of the great Michigan Wolverine football players of all time, great Wolverines of all time, great pro. He might be the best football player ever. He's on a short list there. He's doing Hall of Fame things after his career too. So.
Yeah. It really is a great testimony to those guys, those former players that got involved and really stoked the fires to get all that money, and then the student athletes that really support it and really give some groundwork underneath it. So I mean, it's really a neat thing. It's near and dear to my heart. Love Mott's and pray for them all the time.
Well, I have to tell people, I get on here and tell them, hey, subscribe to the podcast, join us over on the Maize and Blue Review, join up. And, I'm going to be telling you to do that in this show as well. And then I always say, leave your feedback. You can get at me at Twitter, Instagram. You can leave messages here. I see all of them. I emphasize, if you are somebody that just listens to the podcast comments need love. And I received a message this week after this last show, and it was one that I liked because it said, look, it was a little critical, but it said, hey, you're not living up to the name of the show. You need to do more basketball content. It's supposed to be a football and basketball podcast. He says 99% of these episodes are football. Myself and a lot of Michigan fans are excited for basketball more than even football. Make some changes. If you don't want to do both, then take it out of the description where you say covering Michigan football and basketball, because you definitely don't do that. Now, that show, I did 10 minutes of basketball this last one. So I was thinking, all right, hey, but that's all right. And then look, here we are, but it's worked. I think that when I hear that, it's music to my ears. I love people saying that they want to hear, more of something, and that's the way it's done. And in this case, the squeaky wheel is going to get some grease, because I have gone in there and I've got some basketball, and where Michigan in June, where all of the experts that cover the game, where they think Michigan fits in the Big Ten, and what the outlook is for them nationally in the top 25. We have that. And in the basketball theme, we don't get it very often, Jerry, but we got one this year. In the NBA Finals, there have only been 19, now 20 Game 7s, and we have a Game 7. So I'm going to ask Jerry what he's doing Sunday night at 8 o'clock when Oklahoma City will host Indiana in a Game 7 in the NBA Finals. But Jerry, we start. Go ahead.
Before I get into that, Denny, I want to give you a compliment, because not many people are that transparent with their audience to tell them what the critics are saying, and I can relate to that, Denny. We tend to definitely move towards football. That's what I know more of than anything, and I think it's always been the strength of the Michigan athletic department. We've talked about Dusty May. I remember back in the podcast when we were looking for a coach, and we spent some time. But I give you a lot of compliment there, Denny, for your transparency and your attention to your audience and addressing their needs and desires. So hats off to you, Denny. Good job.
Thanks. Thanks. And if you're somebody that's taking this in, you're saying, I want more of this or I want more of that. Well, then get in, and tell us that. And guess what? You'll probably get it because we do aim to please. And as I mentioned before we talk about this Victor's Weekend that is going on right now, you want to know what's going on all the time with Michigan. A great thing is, look, June and July, these are the months that a lot of Michigan fans sit around and say, I'm just counting down the days. I can't wait for college football. And while I completely understand that, an oasis of information and excitement awaits you at the Maize and Blue Review. We're talking Michigan all day, all night. Go to michigan.rivals.com to get it done. So every weekend, go ahead, Jerry.
I'm going to be glued to the TV on Sunday night at 8:00, and I'm going to tell you why, Denny. I'm serious on this. These might have been the best playoffs I've seen in maybe a couple decades, to be honest with you. I think the NBA has bought into the fact that they have to let the players play a little bit more, and I see the games and how they've transpired. There are no more uncontested shots going to the hole. You are going to earn your money going into the paint and making plays. You got people on the ground, and there's no call. And so I applaud the NBA for that and the NBA for looking to let the guys play a little bit more. I'm seeing many more contested offensive rebounds, people playing defense. It's just a lot more fun to watch the games now. And to a smaller extent, kind of reminds me of the 80s where they let them play. And it was fun basketball. It was good to watch. I enjoyed it. I don't find myself turning it off because it's boring.
I wonder if I would feel differently if the Pistons hadn't had a resurgence right now. What I have noticed about both NHL and the NBA, when the Red Wings for 25 or 30 years were in the playoffs every year, and they were one of the Cup favorites. Boy, the NHL playoffs, I mean, it was something that you weren't missing. You're pulling up to your friends. I mean, it's a month or two long, and you're hoping, for a Stanley Cup. And you're looking at all the games, and it's so much fun. Well, and then the Red Wings went, and then, people – well, once the Red Wings are out, the interest in the NHL and the NHL playoffs in this area, it really takes a nosedive. It's the same way I feel like in the NBA, but the Pistons for 16 years had been out of it. They had made the playoffs twice, but they got swept. So the interest, it wouldn't be there. I don't think as much if then you got this Indiana team where you're thinking, hey, if Indiana can do it, how far away are the Pistons from doing it? So there's a couple things that are going on there that make me think that there's some exciting days and years ahead. There was a time when you would get to the off season, and most of it, the off season was more exciting than the regular season because you were like, oh, this guy's going here and this guy's going there, but the Pistons weren't able to do any of that. But now that they're in with a chance and they've built something, and it's like they're going to work, Pistons. They're like the mold of the old teams that won championships. It's exciting, and it's like it's back. And I like that these two teams. For me, I don't care if it was like people say, well, if it was New York and Dallas or something, and the ratings would be fantastic. Well, maybe a 4-game sweep or something. What about you get Oklahoma City and Indiana, and hearing people like, well, nobody's watching it. Well.
Maybe you got to turn it on, try it out.
Maybe.
I'll tell you something, Denny. This is where I'm at with the playoffs. I mean, I've watched them all along, and OKC beat Denver in Game 7, and that was the semifinals of that conference championship. I mean, that's how deep these teams are nowadays. New York was a phenomenal team on the East. Boston gets knocked out early. Cleveland gets knocked out early. So It's really been a really exciting playoff season as far as I'm concerned. And I'm thinking it looking a lot like the old type of basketball that I grew up with.
I like you talking about basketball like that, Jerry. This Victor's weekend is one where Michigan rolls out the carpet and they bring as many players as they can in. And I think everybody's office is open. Everybody's got the streamers, the bunting, everything's looking sharp. And, they're hoping that they can grab a few more players. There's one of them, Kelvin Russell III. He is a 6'5" wide receiver out of Miami. And what I have noticed here that Michigan already has one wide receiver committed, Jayon Pyle out of Texas. They've got another that's a lot of people think that's ultimately going to, they got two, actually one or two that people think are going to end up. And now Russell is in, and he might be the most highly rated out of all of them. They got Sadler from the state of Michigan. And this is not a surprise, Jerry. Bryce Underwood's on this team. They come in, Bryce Underwood throws them a couple passes. Bryce Underwood talks about, hey, this is what's going on at Michigan. This was predicted by a lot of folks, and it's happening.
Denny, we're going to talk a little bit about Michigan recruiting in football right now. I want to get into it a little bit more. I was at the Michigan camp this week.
Oh,
East Kentwood. Yeah. And we were in that tournament. We ended up losing to Harper Woods in the finals, who have two offers for their wide receivers. So, piggyback on what you're saying, Denny, there's a lot of receivers out there looking and thinking to themselves, man, I wouldn't mind being in that huddle with Bryce Underwood. And by the way, Bryce Underwood is a very impressive young man. Very, very impressive young man. And, hey, you're going to attract the best of the best right now. We've got probably the top quarterback recruit in some time. And we're going to get some receivers looking at us now.
Yeah, you just saw Travis Johnson. Here's Zion Robinson. And, all of these guys are 6'4". Travis Johnson, 6'4". Just mentioned that the kid, Russell, may be the highest rated out of all of them. I've got him down here. Rivals has him as a 4-star, but Rivals is a little bit more tight when it comes to handing out a 5-star. But look like some of the other sites have him as a 5-star. This is he might be the most highly rated out of any of them, coming in. Sadler right there on his heels. But man, you would think that they would get, they're look like they're in position to get 3, but they probably take 4.
Well, yeah, you've got Lindsey coming in now. You don't know what to expect from him, basically, because he's done it both. He's run the ball at some schools, and he's come in with 10 personnel and thrown the ball all over the place. So, it's an exciting time in Michigan football. We've got the quarterback that can help lead us, and the receivers are looking to come in, and those were two areas where I think it was pretty obvious that we had to improve on.
I laughed a little bit this week. I was reading a story about J.J. McCarthy at Minnesota, and I don't know if it was the fans or if it was just there were some stories about it, but they were questioning his arm strength. And then Justin Jefferson came out and said, it looks like his arm strength's great. He's can put the ball anywhere he wants. And so they were interviewing him. They were like, "Oh, what's up with people talking about your arm strength?" And he said, "Look, I played at Michigan, and there might be a little bit of a stigma because we didn't throw the ball all that much." And I was thinking, well, stigma about not throwing the ball too much. And he was mentioning it, but he's he's got his number one wide receiver saying that the ball looks good, and the arm strength's there and everything else. But the Michigan part, I think it's going to be a little bit funny here, Jerry, because I think that, and maybe Bryce Underwood just going to, start out. He'll go down to Oklahoma and he'll just, rip through the Sooners defense, and he'll throw for 300 yards and a couple touchdowns and throw it over 30 times. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to throw it like 20 times, and they're going to really depend on the defense, and they're going to really depend on the running game. And then when he gets, more and more, they'll just keep giving him a little bit more and more. Maybe he can handle it right away, but I don't know, a measured, I think reasonable expectation is for him to be serviceable early on, and then they'll just keep adding and adding and adding. And, before long, he'll be able to really start, showing what he can do with that arm. But look, if he can do it and he can connect, they'll have a couple of those, he'll have the opportunity to do it. I'm just thinking, knowing every, quarterback that's come through here, they don't all just hit the ground running.
Denny, you hit a nail on the head right there. Manage the game. That's what we need to do with Bryce Underwood. And I'm going to tell you this. I really believe this. I don't see a better team in the country with depth as good as our defense is going to be this year coming in. I think we're 2 or 3 deep at some areas on the defensive side, and our defense is going to carry the day. We've got a lot of speed, a lot of talent, a lot of size, a lot of depth. There's no reason to hurt the young man with his confidence and taking unnecessary risk. I mean, I see it exactly that way, Danny. Let him manage the game, let everybody else win the game, and let him grow into the position and be the dominant player he's going to be.
Yeah, you only have to look back to last year. Maybe Michigan wouldn't have beat Texas, but Davis Warren, 2 interceptions. The next game, 3 interceptions. And then, you think about the game at Washington. Jack Tuttle was pretty good. Had a touchdown, field goal, touchdown, but then 2 3 and outs, a fumble, an interception. They lose that game. Illinois, interception, fumble, by the quarterback. It just kind of went on and on. Take care of the ball, be serviceable. You don't have to be throwing it all around, but if he can, he will. I'm just thinking it's going to be more, not so much in September, but
absolutely. And we're going to have a running game. We are going to have a running game, and most quarterbacks will admit the running game is their best friend, and so we're going to have a running game. We're going to have a great defense. No reason to put Bryce Underwood in the position that could hurt him in the long run.
You have Aiden Hutchinson coming back from the Lions, and you had Ajabo, and you just keep going from year to year and looking at the edges. That maybe there's Quiddy Pay. Maybe you just keep going right down the line and how Michigan has been producing. Josiah Stewart, Derek Moore, TJ Guy, what they have this
and they're still here.
Yes, that's right. Cam Brandt, Dom Nichols. These are the guys. Carter Meadows is on campus right now. They're walking up. I don't know if they have an edge room, Jerry, or what they do and how they display it there, but they say, I would just say, Mr. Carter, come on in here. Mr. Meadows, take a look at these edges. This place is for you. I would think that Carter Meadows, once he walks through Schembechler and they send him all the way through and show him everything, I got to believe that he's going to walk out there and say, this is the place to be.
Denny, you forgot to mention Marshall. So now you look at Nichols, Marshall, and Meadows, and you got 2 deep at the edges for a long, long time. And with that, if I'm a Meadows, if I'm a Marshall, if I'm a Nichols, I like depth. Not only am I going to get better because of the depth, but because of competition, but I also know that I'm going to have an opportunity to get a break and play when I'm 100% or 90% because I've got depth behind me. I can come out of the game, catch my wind, and then get back in and get my 100%. So the room is, yes, huge and deep. And a lot of talent in that room. This kid would be an absolute fit right there with that position. And I tell you what, it also tells you how the Michigan defensive staff feels about that position. Going after these kids year in and year out, going after the top five and landing them. That's a great position. It's been so impactful over the last 3-4 years, and it's continuing to grow.
Now, Jerry, today's June the 20th, so you got 10, 11 days left in this month. What's interesting about July 1st is that's when the schools can take that $20 million or so that they have and start sending it to players officially. Maybe they can commit it right now because they know it's happening and however, but that's the day that also that NIL deals, they're supposed to go through a clearinghouse and players are going to have to opt in. I'm very interested on all the little finer details. Can players like right now, can they accept gigantic NIL deals that aren't going to be subject to Deloitte going through? Are they going to be able to retroactively look at some of those deals and then decide whether they're good or not? Or are those players then going to have to opt in? So there's some things that are going on. I also just saw that in Wisconsin, this was a story that last, 6 months ago came out, that there was a player that was in for Wisconsin, accepted a deal, but then the next day, Miami was like, hey, we're upping the money, or however that worked. And the kid wanted to leave, and Wisconsin would not let him go. And so the kid left anyways, took a bigger NIL deal to go to the U. Miami has now filed a lawsuit tampering against Miami. Now, if there was a collective bargaining agreement where, you had that, I don't know if Wisconsin and the Big Ten was supposed to get behind. They're saying, yes, we are getting behind that, because I thought that they were going to work on this collective bargaining agreement before July 1st. So that's another thing. You don't have to know all about it, but it's just another thing to keep an eye on. That Wisconsin lawsuit, the Big Ten is completely behind the Badgers, even though on the face of it, it doesn't look like they're going to win or have a leg to stand on. But
what else is new? Anyways, Denny, let me, here's the deal on that, Denny. I think we've said this many a time on this podcast. You can control revenue sharing with collective bargaining, with making student athletes employees of the university. You can control revenue sharing. You cannot control, and I think it came out in Indianapolis 2 weeks ago, you cannot control NIL, you cannot police it, and you cannot regulate it pretty much. It's an open, Wild West situation that college football has to deal with. You and I can go out and get an advertisement, Denny. There ain't nobody can say no to. We can go out and get our advertisements, just like the kids can. And God bless them.
Yeah, the
Big Ten losing another court case, that doesn't surprise me one bit.
Well, if the Big Ten, maybe across college football, they've got it's not a commissioner or whatever, the new governing body, how it's going to go in. They want you to opt in. So if you opt in to college football, then you're going to have to agree. That sounds like a collective bargaining agreement to me. So
for revenue sharing, not for NIL.
Yeah, well, so NIL, that's what because Deloitte, they're going to review all of the NIL deals. And what we know is that in a court case where they say, they're like, oh, you're not going to be worth that much. What the court say is that you are worth as much as anybody will give you.
That's right. That's right.
So it'd be interesting to see how they're able to, if that opt in or what if that holds up, if we get lawsuits coming right after that. So there you go. See, there's Dave. He's into it. He says they can opt out of the revenue sharing. So they have to. They
can get both, though. They can also get both, from what I understand.
Yeah, that's right. They
Absolutely. Can. So the revenue sharing can be policed. NIL, good luck.
Yeah, good luck, I think is a good way to put it there. All right. Well, that gets us to some basketball news. You had LJ Kaysen, who was a freshman on the team last year. Remember, he's out of Lakeland, Florida. And then Morez Johnson Jr., who is a transfer from Illinois. Congratulations goes out to Morez Johnson Jr. He makes the under 19 USA World Cup team. LJ not making the cut. LJ did make the final 18, but this is the final team, and this is the roster. And Morez Johnson Jr. makes it. This is going to be a great experience. And this kid, Johnson Jr., he could be. Who knows? This guy seems to be the limit for Johnson. Doesn't have. He is very raw. Just watching his tape. Any experience he gets, but his ceiling seems to be unlimited. So this is great news for Michigan. Great news for Johnson to be able to work out with USA.
When was the last time, Denny, you saw people picking Michigan in the Final Four in basketball preseason? That doesn't happen. There's some people out there picking Michigan to be in the Final Four this year. So,
well, what I saw, Jerry, is I went through every publication or website that had somebody that wanted to give an early look and projection at the Big Ten, and every single website that I found picked Purdue as the number one team in the Big Ten. Returning players, transfer portal, and everything else, Purdue number one. Every one of those publications and websites that I talk about also had Michigan number two. There wasn't, UCLA was there at 3, and there was some difference. Sometimes Michigan State would be at 4, but all of them, and this is at least, I'd say, 6 websites or publications that had people that were looking into it and breaking it down. All of them had Purdue, Michigan 1-2 in the Big Ten. And then nationally, websites and publications that wanted to do a June top 25, almost all of those had Purdue in the top 5, and all of them had Michigan in the top 10. I didn't see any Michigan, anything higher than 5, but I didn't see them, I don't think, any lower than 10 either. So top 10 heading into the season for Michigan. It is exciting. That's why somebody said, hey, they're pretty excited about Michigan. You should be excited. Well, after what?
This is not new, though. I mean, I remember back, I think it was 97 or 2000, something like that. We had the most points as far as all the teams combined: basketball, football, baseball, hockey, women's sports. So, I mean, this is Michigan being Michigan. We support all of our sports, and I'm so excited about Dusty and this upcoming basketball season, but not nearly as much as I'm excited about football coming in.
Well, I can understand that. You're right. This is Michigan being Michigan. You say, I hear what you're saying on that. There was a time somebody used to always tell me that, hey, Michigan basketball, if it wasn't for football, they're still a pretty decent program. When you look back, there's not many teams that made the Final Four in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, and Michigan's there. They were able to do that. I just saw something this week that was a little surprising, and I ended up not putting it in here. I triple checked it. So there's this place called College Basketball Report. It was on Instagram, and they were putting out the most watched college basketball games ever. And they had like 10 of them. And the number one was when Bird played Magic in 79, the Indiana State, Michigan State game. That was the over 35 million people watched. That's always been number one. No one was ever able to touch that. What I found was surprising is that Michigan was in out of the, they have here 4 and 3, 12 out of the top 12 college basketball games ever watched. Michigan's in 3 of them, which is pretty surprising for, a football school. And there they are playing the Fab Five against Duke in 92, the national championship game. The 93 national championship game, that was against Carolina. That was the timeout game. The 89 national championship game ranked at number 8 on that list. So 3 of the top 8 most watched college basketball games ever had Michigan in it. That's a surprise to me.
Dang it. You know what? It's a surprise to me, but it's not shocking in this regard. Michigan travels well. Michigan supports their teams. Michigan's got the greatest network of alumni out there. And so, yes, it doesn't shock me. Michigan's going to watch Michigan, and we're going to tune in anytime we've got a big one. And we're going to tune in anytime, but especially when there's a big one. So, surprising a little bit, yeah, maybe, because we're not the Duke, North Carolina, UCLA's, but not shocking.
In football, they've got a lot. Every year that seems like, Mouse Watch, Michigan, Ohio State. They've got a special place every year. But, then Michigan, Alabama. Michigan football always. Michigan, Notre Dame, highest. Michigan football is most watched. They're scattered on a bunch of different lists. You'll see Michigan football was just a little bit, like you mentioned, because of Carolina and Duke, that Michigan would be there. And I thought maybe it was just that site, but then I looked at another one, and then I looked at another one, and I thought, wow, it's not just this seems to be, let's say, a consensus, at least something that other people when it was researched, came up with too. So there it is. Sam is worried about Dusty, another team coming along and stealing him. I thought that was a real legitimate concern when Indiana had an opening. He grew up right outside of Bloomington. He went to Indiana. He started coaching at Indiana. I mean, he is an Indiana guy through and through. So, but they got through that last year. He was there for a moment. The team was doing good, so he got a rework deal there, and he was able to get more NIL money too at the same time. That worked out great for Dusty. It worked out great for Michigan basketball. I don't see him leaving anywhere. He's got everything right now, Jerry. What would be an argument for a team other than Indiana, and they just hired a coach, so it's not going to be Indiana? What other team is going to come along and say, we want Dusty May now, and we're going to go over the top, and they're going to be in a better situation than Michigan? I don't know. Is it North Carolina or something like that?
I mean, they can try. They can try. But right now, I think Michigan's headed in that direction where we understand we've got the pockets and we got the okay that we can go do some things. And so I think, like you said, Denny, it was a concern to me a month, 2 months ago, 3 months ago when Indiana was going after them and there was talk of that. Yeah, that was a concern. Now, you better be ready to pony up big bucks to go after Michigan people.
Yeah, there was a concern about when Juwan was here. They were in on some big time players, but then they weren't able to get them in with transfer credits, and then some of the foreign players at Michigan, it's harder to get in. And there was like, well, they're just gonna play from behind, and then it seemed like NIL wasn't there either, but. That all seems like it's however they've worked it, whether they go through a clearinghouse beforehand, because look, they went out and got the German kid. And so, they were able to bring a foreign player in. These other guys in the transfer portal, they were able to clear them. I just think, I don't know if it was just bad luck for Juwan. The two guys that were big names just ended up. Terrence Shannon Jr., he wanted to come in, but then the credits weren't transferring, so he was like, that's not going to happen. Caleb Love out there at Arizona, it was the same thing. He was like, I'm coming to Michigan, but then you hear like, no, Michigan's not, taking those credits or whatever else. But I don't know if they've done something behind the scenes, but you haven't heard since Dusty took over. Nobody's talking about, it's so tough to get guys in and the transfer credits. He was able to pull all these guys in. So,
well, let's not forget, Juwan had a little bit of a health issue.
That's right.
At the end. And so, I can attest to this, Denny. When you have health issues, you lose focus and you lose sight of what some of the other responsibilities in your life are about, and that's a tough one. When you have you're fighting, I can't even imagine fighting at that kind of level and having that kind of health issue. That's a tough one. That's it's going to cloud your judgments at times.
House number one. Dave saying, except baseball. Baseball's in a tough spot because where the calendar's at, you're playing the northern teams when it's pretty cold out up north. And so, you're working against it. Although softball, which is in the same boat as baseball, they seem like they have been able to overcome it. But it is tough for baseball to compete with the southern teams.
Weren't we in the finals a few years ago, though, Denny?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not. Yes, they were. They were,
and we've been there, and we've won the World Series. I think in this century so far, have we?
Not that with 64. I think is when they won.
Well, I'm way off.
That's all right. Well, they've made the College World Series. They've made the College World Series.
That was it. Okay.
Just a few years ago.
We've been there. Baseball it's had its spots where it's been very successful.
It is. It's right there. I mean, the problem with it is because, they're playing when it's 30 or 40 degrees outside. That's not baseball weather. I like Jerry. It's tough to go get people to play baseball at Michigan, although they have been able to do it. So there it is.
Hey, I remember they had Larkin. They had the pitcher. What was his name? I can't believe
Jim Abbott?
Yeah, Abbott. Okay. So they've had some good teams, Denny. I'm not gonna
Bill Freehan,
Michigan baseball too much.
Bill Freehan, Rick Leach. You want to go through them all, Jerry?
No, I'm just going through the.
No, that's a pretty distinguished list, So there you go. I'm right there with you. All right, so we wrapped it up. We wrap it up talking about that Game 7 that's coming up on Sunday. We talked about it a little bit before, but you don't get these very often. I think most people, myself included, when it came out of the NBA Finals, I said, well, who do you like? I said, I think it's going to be Oklahoma City, but I just hope it goes 7 games. Well, here it is. I get my wish, and so Sunday night, there's only been 19. This will be the 20th Game 7 in NBA Finals history. So I'm hoping for a good Game 7. So and that's what I'm waiting for.
Yep. No, I'm back to watching basketball again, Denny. I'm back to watching basketball. I like the way they're letting everybody play, the players play. I'm liking the defensive step up that I've seen in this year's basketball, and I like the physicality of it.
And the Pistons twice, I think about against the Spurs, they went 7 games, and they would have been able to go back-to-back if Rasheed Wallace came out of the huddle and they said, hey, don't leave Robert Horry open. And he did. That was they would have won back-to-back championships in 2004 and 2005 if it wasn't for Rasheed not sticking to his player there. That's a tough one. And then also in Game 7, you got to go a little bit further back, Jerry, but you might remember. I mean, you remember Kareem. It was a Game 7, and they throw it down with a couple seconds to go, and Kareem goes to his patented skyhook, and Bill Laimbeer pretty much has this plane of verticality. He might lean a little bit, and they called a foul on him, and that was it. And they called that the phantom foul. A year or two ago, I went back and looked at that because all down through the years, I always said, oh, yeah, that was a phantom foul. And I wanted to see if it was going to hold up for the test of time. Was that really a phantom foul on Laimbeer? And, oh, man, that was pretty bad. I mean, he wasn't completely straight up like this, but you got Kareem using his arm bar and throwing it up there, and Laimbeer's leaning like a little bit in there. That was a That was a Laker call. That's why you get $10 billion for the Lakers, because they get the calls.
Exactly.
There it is.
Yep.
Jerry, do you have anything final?
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience at the Michigan 7-on-7 camp this week. Just a great event. We went down to Ann Arbor, and first of all, I got to talk about their organization. I mean, we had lightning storm and storms out there, and that kind of a weather in a camp just really throws everybody off. And in Michigan, just looked like they responded like that, pulled it off. We played, we sit a game, okay? But that's good. You get your rest and you come back in and play. But everybody got their games. The tournament took its championship, and I'm really, really proud of the organization that Michigan showed with that 7-on-7 and flexibility to adjust to the weather. The staff was all there. Talked to Lou Esposito and saw his son, good-looking young man. Chatted with Wink, chatted with Soup Campbell, chatted with I'm getting old, Denny. I'm getting freaking old. The old coach at West Bloomfield, who's a Michigan
Bellamy.
legend, huh?
Ron Bellamy.
Bellamy. Talked to him. Met with Cerullo, the tight ends coach. Great, this is a great staff, and they're there, and they were there recruiting. They were there front and center, very approachable, good guys, very personable guys, and just a really good experience that way. Really welcoming situation. The staff was there. I talked to Sharon for a second. So, I mean, great communication. And then also, as always, Michigan is safety first, all over the place, trainers, managers, and people taking care of equipment if last minute things were missing, injuries, right now on it, and just really good experience. Number one. Number two, on that 7-on-7, what talent was there? Whoa. I'm going to tell you something, Denny. We're talking about recruiting. I don't think the people realize, or maybe they do, maybe I didn't realize it, how young these kids are being recognized and where they're at. We played against a team from Virginia, Huguenot, I believe is the name of the team. And they got a quarterback. I thought he was the coach. I thought he was one of the coaches. He's a stud. He's an absolute stud. He's a 2028. So he's a sophomore to beat. His name is Charles Scott. Watch out for him. He's every bit of 6'5", probably better. And he's every bit of 235. And I say much better than that. This is a big man. He's a man amongst men as a sophomore to be. And he throws nice balls. He's very comfortable, and you can understand he's going to be comfortable as big as he is. So, but throws a nice ball, places it well, reads the defense well. He was one of the teams that beat us, and he was good, and everybody was drooling over him. And he's going to be one of those top recruits in a couple years you're going to hear about. Like I said, we saw the two Harper Woods kids that Michigan has offered. Dakota Grant, 6'1", 195. He is a 27 recruit. And DeAndre Biden, wide receiver, 6 foot, 185. He's a 28 recruit. We played Harper Woods in the finals in the championship game. And these kids are freaks. I mean, they're fast. They're great hands, great route running. Great experience for our defense, but my Lord, they were good. They were really good. A lot of talent, and really put on a show in the big house. We got to play in the big house. That was a great experience there. Saw C.J. Sadler, the 4-star out of Cass Tech. Didn't get to play him, but I watched him a little bit. Nice player. Another kid that really surprised the heck out of me, and we played Saline, Lincoln Keys. You can understand why Georgia's going after this young man, and I can see him fitting in at that Michigan tight end position. We seem to have these tight ends that can split out and go deep, like Loveland and Klein, but we also still bring in those big tight ends like Hoffman and Prescorn and some of these other guys that can block pretty well. So the kid out of Saline, great ball player. Like I said, I saw our recruit from Esposito. Saline's going to be a very good high school football team this year. I can guarantee you that. I'd like to throw a shout out to our team, East Kentwood, for making the finals. Owen Vanderveen had a great game. Kendrick Mayhew, phenomenal tight end for us. Last year, great blocking tight end. Really helped secure many of our run game explosive plays. He had a great game. And Amon Edmonds, mighty, had a great game. Our kid showed some great hands. And Cade Kaufman, our quarterback, who is going to that other school in Michigan, he showed why he's that caliber player. So really enjoyed it. Enjoyed getting back home to Ann Arbor. The facilities are unbelievable. The staff is unbelievable. And I just think our future is really, really big. To be honest with you, there's a lot of pressure on Sharon because he's got a lot behind him.
Yeah, well, he wants to be in that spot.
And yes, he does.
So, Jerry, I always wonder, when you're a former Wolverine, you played. It was a few years ago, but you'd have the helmet on, so I'm not sure that everybody would just recognize you. But then, what I noticed is that you have an aura that surrounds you. You kind of look like you're famous. I mean, you've got your hair kind of going over there. You've got the shades like wearing there. If I was just walking, I would just say at the spring game, and I saw you coming, and saw you walking over there where we were going to meet. I thought, well, this is a movie star. But then you could say, well, maybe he's a former player, and then you don't know. So the coaches like that too, or they kind of like, wait, is this a movie star? Or is this? Do you wear your Michigan ring and then you just have to show them, and that's how the conversation goes? I mean, I can see how you're going to be very approachable because you have that look about you. So how did that work?
Let me stop you there. First of all, the look comes from God. Thank God for who I am, and I thank God every day for when and who and where I was brought up at. That goes without that's what I would say about that. Now, the other thing is, I used to say this, Denny, and I could still say this. What other place can a marginal player like Jerry Diorio, go back to his home school and know much of the staff and have a connection with the staff like you can at Michigan? I was a marginal player at best, and I still go home and feel like the superstar. And that's Michigan. That is what Michigan is about. We're not with you just because we're recruiting you. It goes the whole time, your whole life. You're bigger than you're part of something bigger than yourself, and you take pride in it. And again, thankful that I had the opportunity to go there.
I love it. It's well said. Everything else. So, what's the other thing I was going to ask you about? It's not there. Not
getting like me, Denny. You're getting a little older.
Maybe that's it.
Hey, there are times I forget things in mid-sentence, so
it can happen. All right, Jerry. Well, I do remember this. It's always good to have you on here and get your insight. Talk Michigan football. A lot of fun. Hope to see you down the road. And you're looking great. And all the best to you. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be a Michigan Wolverine. Hail to the victors, Denny.
There he is, Jerry Diorio. Great to have him in here.